The Nightfarers seek redemption. That's why they're here. For their failures and their sins have had severe consequences. In this episode, we learn that the Recluse did not show her infant love. This led to the death of an old friend. For the Guardian, we learn that he lacked the knowledge to shield his flock, a shortcoming that ends with him having no one left to protect. Tragic stories, but as with the Tarnished, it's the Nightfarers' very pasts that make them such able combatants. Their desire for redemption strengthens their will, the will to resist the night, to remember who they are and what they're fighting for. For the night would smother all grief, erasing all memory, and if memory is gone, what remains? The Recluse is a witch of the deep woods, one of many, according to her remembrance. For a little more detail on her folk, I'll be referring to version 1.0 of Nightreign, which features unique remembrance text that seems to add to the lore, rather than contradict it. For example, the Recluse's remembrance used to read, "The Recluse hails from a long-lived race from a bygone age, whose inky black skin and prowess with curse magic made them feared as living deities." That part about them being feared as living deities was removed from later versions of the game. But while it's technically cut content, I still tend to believe it. I think these ancient witches were certainly worthy of such a reputation, especially given the cursed nature of their magic. In Nightreign, one's own blood is revealed as a fundamental component of curse magic. Take the Recluse's Soul Blood Song, for example, which triggers her own blood loss with certain relics equipped. Naturally, these curse magics have a dark reputation, yet they're not inherently malevolent. The Witch's Brooch, for instance, was originally intended as a ceremonial tool to calm violent winds, used to quell the storm and save lives. What's more, there's a moment in the Recluse's remembrance where she strokes the Guardian's wing, causing his curse to recede. She then disregards his thanks, stating, "'Tis nothing. 'Twas for such times I learned what I did." So it is that we learn that the Recluse herself originally learned this ancient spellcraft for good, not ill. And her spells are ancient. The origins of the Witch's Brooch, for instance, are detailed in the 3rd volume, a tome that can only be unlocked by a stone stake. This stake may be claimed from a guardian golem, and it's said to be imbued with an old yet fading magic. It was crafted by an ancient civilization, and can open locks sealed in a similar manner to the golem. This is a revelation, for the ancient civilization in question is the Blackstone civilization, one of the oldest cultures in Elden Ring lore, whose unique architecture is deeply stratified all over the lands between. So, if this book detailing the magic of the Witch's Brooch is as old as their guardian golems, then that means the witches of the deep woods must be older still. It's a fascinating addition to the lore. We learn that the Blackstone civilization was in the habit of documenting the cultures of other lands, then sealing away that knowledge with keys that only they held. And in time, such knowledge would find its way to the archive of the Round Table Hold, allowing us to learn about some of the conflicts that our ancient Recluse was involved in.
I once read a story in a very old tome about a realm far west of the lands between where fighting erupted. One side was comprised of winged men. They were robbed of these wings by an accursed weapon known as Anictaris. Countless Pinion folk were killed, while their kingdom's fate hung in the balance. Or so the story goes. I never imagined I would meet a living victim. To think the legends were true.
These weapons were named Ictaris, blades that all shared an identical engraving, channeling the power of a blood magic crystal within the Witch's Brooch. And so this ceremonial tool used to quell the storm and save lives was repurposed as a vicious weapon, now used to pluck feathers from the sky and take lives. The term Ictaris is almost certainly a reference to the myth of Icarus. In the tale, Icarus is granted wings fashioned from feathers and wax, but in his hubris he flies too close to the sun. The wax melts, his wings fail, and he plummets to the earth. Fitting, then, that the Ictaris weapons were those that inflicted a similar fall, robbing the pinion folk of their flight. But why? Why did the Recluse have cause to lay such a curse upon the winged folk? Well, the third volume offers an answer. It tells us that the Recluse of the Deep Woods was under contract, bound to an army determined to achieve victory. For, as the menial explains, their kingdom's fate hung in the balance. Thus, to defend a citadel against the pinion folk, her curse-forged weapons were used to devastating effect, decimating the attacking force. We may never know why the pinion folk had cause to rally against this nameless citadel in this nameless kingdom of the realm, but there is a trend here, one where this kingdom keeps finding itself deadlocked in war, and yet determined to achieve victory. For we learn of another instance where the witches employed ancient magics to turn the tide, not with the Ictaris blades this time, but with an infant, a being that could devour the shadows of both the living and the dead. And once again, it's the menial who has uncovered these tales of the Recluse's magics turned against her foes.
I have come to an understanding regarding the Shards of Night. It was written of in an old document from a faraway land. In a dispute between two realms, there was a beast at the center of the affair, which devoured soldier after soldier. No one saw the beast itself, but it left a mountain of corpses in its wake. An old man-at-arms is quoted as saying, "It feasted on our shadows, even those of the dead." Rather chilling, wouldn't you say?
To the Recluse, this beast is her quote-unquote beloved infant, and it's the entire reason that she's come to Limveld in the first place. Her remembrance reads, "The beloved infant, the being that I, as a witch, birthed." It was never a true name bequeathed, though with a certain mirth we spoke of it as the gnawling. It ravened, as if its appetite knew no bound. It would devour shadows of any stripe. In Elden Ring, every instance of living shadows that we know of are bound to their bearers by the two fingers and their light. So it's interesting to learn that in Nightreign, shadows have substance for the common folk as well, such that losing one's own shadow can devastate its bearer. Luckily, it seems the Recluse knew someone who could satiate the infant's hunger with such shadow. She recalls, "As such, I left its feeding to mine old companion, the Witch of the Wheel. She was, in a sense, the infant's nurse." But this wouldn't last. In cut remembrance content, there is a moment where the Recluse and her old acquaintance began to talk of their former days, spent in service to the kingdom, and in such service, one of the witches lost their life to break the deadlock in their kingdom's war. Chapter 6 reads, "During a great clash of armies, the infant overran the enemy, devouring their shadows. It was then that it lost itself and bared its fangs at us. With time, I have come to understand. It was yet young, and I did not think to take it in my arms, to offer comfort of any kind. The price I paid was the loss of an old friend. I still remember, clear as day, her remains, shorn of any shadow." With the infant, as with the Ictaris blades, once more we see an innocent creation weaponized. So, in coming to Limveld, the Recluse finally seeks redemption, for she is certain that after her infant disappeared that day, that it must have had an audience with the Night Lord. She claims the Night Lord's own shade would have surely seemed irresistible to it, and so the Recluse wonders, what must have become of my creature after it did feast? To answer this question, we recover a night shard, which actually carries evidence of being eaten away at by the infant. This shard then leads us to a vestige of night lying upon the bed at the round table, a scrap of Hailstor's own wrappings that seal him. It's a clear sign of the Night Lord's presence, which must mean that the Night Lord was here. Or rather, the infant was. And is there even a difference? For the infant has subsumed many in its hungering. For example, the vestige of night also contains traces of the Recluse's old companion, the infant's nurse, the Witch of the Wheel, who was long ago consumed. But now she's here, hiding somewhere in the Round Table hold.
What gave me away? It hath been long indeed, fellow spellcaster. How pleasant it is to see thy feathers ruffled for a change. Understandable, though, as thou sawest me battle-slain and buried. The Night Lord saw fit to return me to life. Now, we're reunited. Perhaps we ought take this chance to speak. Rememberest thou not? The monster to which thou gavest rise, the devourer of shadow, the weapon unleashed by thee upon the world entire. I was subsumed by the infant, but clung to life in this form, granted now the chance to act upon mine own desires. As events conspired, neither of us should have survived. Yet thou still drawest breath. Why? Why? In what measure did I not stand equal to thee? Yet, unlike thee, ever heedless, free of spirit, I am the one who will succeed. I hope thou takest my meaning, fellow spellcaster. Cease thy foolish conduct, following in the Night Lord's very steps. Indeed. How should I put this? Canst thou thine own child slay? If thou seekest the mechanical menial, I merely needed his momentary silence. Take a good look inside the mausoleum.
Where am I? Brave Lady Witch? Why on earth? How could you have done such a thing? Oh, my apologies. I see precisely what has happened here. It wasn't you, but a foul impostor who did this to me. What in heaven's name is going on? She's an old friend, is she? Now, as you tell it, the Night Lord grew from a shadow hatchling. If that is true, then there may indeed be some degree of culpability. But can we unquestioningly assume that a single enchanted organism could mature so fantastically? I must say, I doubt that it could be so simple.
The menial is right to question her conclusion. The infant can't have grown into the primordial Night Lord. The primordial Night Lord emerged from Hailstor, who was a simple knight that crawled out from a pile of corpses. He is, and was not, the infant. The infant has its own backstory completely separate from the knight. That is, until their paths crossed. For when the infant attempted to consume the Night Lord's shadow, it seems to have merged with the knight somehow. As proof of this, look at the Witch of the Wheel. First, she was subsumed by the infant long ago, but then, when the infant was itself subsumed by the knight, the Witch of the Wheel was too. For it was the Night Lord who brought the Witch of the Wheel back to life, sensing an ally within the infant, within itself, who could serve the knight and dissuade the recluse from her pursuit. Suffice to say, in this example, we have proof that the Night Lord and the infant are both a part of the night. The infant is now what the recluse's remembrance calls the child with the Night Lord. But the child is not lost in the night. It is with the Night Lord. And so, on the infant's behalf, perhaps, the Night Lord has left a gift for the Recluse to find.
Where are my manners? I must offer you my thanks for helping me. Oh, what's this? Brave champion. Perhaps you should take it. While unconscious, I had a dream. I was handed this by the Night Lord. Well, I didn't see our foe per se, but I know it to be true. I sense a great power within. Power enough to change a person's fate, I do believe.
This bone-like stone is a bone of an outer god. The outer god of night, or so I put forward in my main Nightreign lore video. It's well established in Elden Ring lore that the night has power over fate, and indeed this relic, this bone of the night itself, has what the menial deems power enough to change a person's fate. With it in her possession, the Recluse can approach the infant at the Round Table Hold and bring their story to a close. The choice was left to the witch, as per the wishes of the Night Lord who bestowed it.
My fellow spellcaster, I thank thee for bestowing thy love upon our knight.
According to her final remembrance, the gentle knight within the infant now knows a peaceful slumber, hinting, I think, that what the knight wants, above all else, is acceptance, something it will never receive under Marika's Golden Order, but with the Recluse, it just might. Before we talk about the Guardian, I'd like to announce something that I'm working on. I'm writing a book, an interpretation of Elden Ring's lore. It's my channel in physical form, and it's called Lorebound. So, every Elden Ring video I've created first began as a script, lore written to be as concise and entertaining as possible for you all. So really, it feels natural to transform these scripts into a book. To this end, I'm teaming up once again with the folks at Toon and Fairweather, who helped me to bring Soul Arts to life a few years back. Lorebound will be complete with illustrations that help to set the scene, as well as these little lore box outs that let me go off on fun tangents about the many secrets in the game. And these box outs will also be a great place for me to feature other lore creators or voices in the community, because everyone has different interpretations of this story, and my take is by no means the official one. What you're seeing here is a sample chapter that we've put together on Nightreign's Cutting Gifted Tribe, which you can download and read for yourself by clicking the link in the description. And if you like it, you can consider pre-ordering. There are 2 editions. What you saw earlier was the softcover version, featuring a tarnished illustration by Kaio Hazera. We've kept this edition as affordable as possible, though we couldn't resist adding a few premium touches. The design is going to be printed in metallic gold over this silver laminated paper, and there's even an optional slipcase if you'd like to upgrade and protect your investment. But if you do want to go all out, let me show you the deluxe edition, with cover art by Ricardo Amique. There are so many secrets hidden within this cover art, which spans a single wraparound binding that will snap perfectly into place with a magnetic clasp. So, if you want to guarantee a first edition copy is reserved for you at launch, check out the pre-order page if you're interested. You can expect it sometime next year, because my work isn't done yet. There are still videos and scripts I want to create, and this book is a huge motivator for that. It's pushing me to complete all upcoming videos and to update the outdated theories in my older ones as well. This book will be my final take on everything, and I promise to bring you something beautiful when it's ready. Until then, let's continue with the videos.
I see thou hast my role in thy plight deduced. Indeed. I am the one who tore thy kind from the sky. This is a crystallization of that accursed magic. I entrust it to thee. I knew one day it would come to this. Now, do as thou wilt with me.
The story of the Guardian, his memory restored, leads up to this confrontation with the Recluse, a moment where he recalls who he truly is, despite the Knight obfuscating his memories. Beyond the typical loss of self, the Guardian has no real personal connection to the Knight. Instead, what keeps him here is a duty to his fellow Nightfarers, his new flock, who fare with him against the Knight. According to his 1.0 remembrance, the Guardian was actually drawn to the Round Table Hold in search of knowledge, for it was his lack of knowledge, he thought, that had doomed his old flock, a people called the Pinion Folk, who perished along with the winged realm they inhabited. In his Chapter 2 remembrance, the Guardian laments that perhaps if armed with knowledge, I might have saved them, and in cut content, the Knight's eyes shone. The Round Table Hold contained a wealth of histories and records for his perusal. It was from thence that the Guardian began to address the Recluse as his teacher. For, first and foremost, he was a warrior. He could not begin to tackle such a task alone. Sympathetic to his desire to learn, the Recluse offered to lend her aid. There was a spring in the Guardian's step as he headed over to her, a buzz at what lessons would be his to discover. So he took to the Recluse quite well. But there was another at the Round Table whose brash nature rubbed the Guardian the wrong way. For there's a moment in his remembrance where the Raider offers the Guardian a custom helmet, only for the Guardian to reject it. In cut content, we learn what was going through the Guardian's head in this moment. The helm falls to the floor, and tentatively, the Guardian reached for it. His heart began to pound, sweat running down his face. From somewhere he heard the clash of steel upon steel, the bellowing of battle, the screaming agony of comrades slain. His flock would be all but wiped out, soon enough. Eventually, coming to his senses, he saw that the helmet had been knocked to the floor. This remembrance text is cut, perhaps because it's too dramatic, but it does showcase what we already know, that the Guardian is traumatized by his past, and that, for one who lived only to protect, there could be no greater torment than surviving alone, as others around him died. So, he had set aside his helmet long ago, ever since the day he lost the flock he failed to protect. And he was having doubts about this new flock. In one remembrance, he recalls his companions. The Wilder is baking bread, the Iron Eye is playing at archery with the Raider, the Executor is silently painting, and all the while the Guardian is thinking they were a flock that was far from whole, imbalanced and uneven. He wondered if the word even truly applied, for they were so different to his old flock, who fought as one. He recalls in formation they took to the skies, cutting through the air with the ease of a single living being. From his vantage amongst the clouds, the Guardian spied the citadel below. A hail of spears came hurtling from the ramparts. This was all part of their duty as winged warriors of the Scapular Regiment. The Guardian's corps took the van to shield the greater flock from the incoming projectiles, before receding to allow the Talon Regiment to plunge into the fortress. It would not stand for long. Knights of the Pinion Folk feared not death. It was their duty and their pride to give themselves for the sake of the whole. The flock would always grow new feathers. But now only one feather remains, the Guardian. His remembrance is the struggle to accept his fate, and so he seeks the 3 tomes that speak of the Ictaris weapons. By doing this, he hopes to find some closure, and, as if guided by grace, an apparitional merchant wanders into the Round Table Hold, calling the Guardian his savior.
Well, you must be my savior. It is a pleasure to meet you. I am but a humble merchant. Take this to mark the occasion of our acquaintance.
This yellow charm promptly causes the Guardian to faint, and while the Iron Menial believes the merchant had no ill will, the Guardian feels they have only one option: to dispose of the merchant for the good of the flock.
What are you doing? Why, my savior, tell me, why?
A grim decision that does bode ill for the Recluse, considering she also once crafted a charm that became a curse. She notes, "I know the laws of thy people. Thou wilt not suffer those who endanger the flock to remain." Her commentary on his people's laws make me wonder, could this explain why the Pinion folk attacked the Citadel the witch was defending? Had the people of the Citadel endangered the Pinion folk somehow? Was this why they couldn't suffer the people of the Citadel to remain? At any rate, now the merchant is dead, and with his death you receive the merchant's ledger, a list of transactions that reveal the merchant had traded with Libra, a demon, a Night Lord. Perhaps this creature gave the merchant the charm that would make its way into the hands of the Nightfarers. Perhaps the merchant really wasn't to blame, after all. But now the Guardian is forced to weigh his options, so to speak.
Make your choice.
The demon has the third volume, one that lays bare the secrets of the cursed Ictaris weapons and their script put down in blood. By now the Guardian was well aware of his compatriots' stories. The Wilder had told him of the pack of horses galloping across Windwale Knoll, and the Raider had recalled the great adventures of the pirates of the coastal waters. He knew of the fearsome fellowship, the wandering warrior whose habit it was to preserve scenes with brush and ink, and, most importantly, he now knew the tale of the witch of the deep woods who wielded cursed magics. Eyes closed as he contemplated matters, someone approached. "I do not like to interfere," she said. Across from him stood a girl who seemed more dull than human, the newest feather to find home within the flock. She continued, stating, "However, I owe the witch a debt. Even with what you now know, it is not too late." And with that, she left, leaving behind a scrap of paper. The Revenant reveals to the Guardian that once the magic of the long-lived witch was used to quell storms and save lives. And so,
I see thou hast my role in thy plight deduced. Indeed, I am the one who tore thy kind from the sky. This is a crystallization of that accursed magic I entrusted to thee. I knew one day it would come to this. Now, do as thou wilt with me. But why? The fault lies with me. For thy peoples, I believe I understand. I will not forget this kindness. My utmost thanks, good Sir Knight.
the Guardian could not bring himself to harm the Recluse, though she was indeed the one who birthed the curse which wrenched away the wings of his former flock. She was one feather utterly essential to the new. The Guardian weighed both thoughts in his mind. He knew then what it was that he must protect, and as proof of his knighthood, his very resolution, he would don the helm that the giant of a man had mended for his wear. Taking it in hand, the Guardian stepped forth with renewed purpose.
The Recluse has taught me much. Only true selflessness can preserve the flock.